All right, we're live on the Week 12 edition of the Phil Steele Show. Come join us on the YouTube, on Varsity Channel on YouTube. We're brought to you by our friends at Home Field Apparel. We appreciate so much how many viewers we've had the last few weeks, how many listens we've had on the College Sports Now podcast feed. Really appreciate everyone. If you're with us live, go ahead, jump in the chat. Give us some of those picks. We like to see what you guys are thinking too. Phil Steele, just another standard 3-0 week on your top three plays. You love to see it. 2-1 or better for 7 weeks running. That's 17-3-1 over that stretch. I think that's pretty good. Last week you had New Mexico State and Cal, both easy money. Cal ends up winning outright as an 18-point dog. Had to hang on for the Vandy win in overtime, but another great week, sir. How you feeling?
Well, I tell you, the Vanderbilt win was because when you go to overtime, the odds of winning by 7. I mean, either team can win by 3, either team can win by 6. The odds of winning by 7 are not good, but we'll take that one because there's been some bad beats during the course of the year. They say they even out, so I'll take that one for sure at 17-3-1. And the tour had another winning week last week. The Phil Steele Plus Tour that went 4-1 last week on the selections, 3-2 on the quick hitters. That thing has been on fire as well. And I just wish for my Pressbox subscribers out there, if you're a Pressbox subscriber, Pressbox went 2-2 last week. 4-4 last week. So I'd like to be hitting this 90% with my Pressbox subscribers as well. We'll get there in these final 4 weeks of the year.
Certainly hope so. I did. Last week, you had me pick a couple of games. We hit on Texas Tech, which was nice. They got it done against BYU at home. But I also gave out the over in Death Valley with Clemson and Florida State. Never came close. And we taped this show at 11 a.m. Eastern time each Thursday. Later that day, I saw I'm also a Pressbox subscriber, so I saw you and the computer both had that game going a little bit shy of the total there. So started getting nervous right then and there. But yeah, definitely go to philsteele.com. Check out everything that Phil's got going on over there. We are one person shy this week. David Kahn is currently on a plane. He's flying to Arkansas because some of us, unfortunately, have to start dealing with college basketball this time of year. David's going up there to call some games for the Hogs. But I do want to give the Admiral a shout out here. Another winner last week with UConn. I think that's 4 in a row.
Nice.
Where David's top play is cash. So very good. Good work there, DK.
He should have given
out
us a play to give out here on the air.
He should. You know what? I'll shoot him a text while we're doing this. We do need to get a play. That's very lazy of him. He needs to you got to have a play here on the Phil Steele Show. Let's go ahead and jump into some games. We'll start out tonight, Thursday night. Troy at Old Dominion. Old Dominion laying 10.5 at home. We got a 7:30 kick between a pair of 6-3 teams here. ODU had a couple of bad losses where it got away from them against JMU and Marshall in back-to-back weeks, but they've rebounded 1-2 in a row coming in. Troy, they've been good on the road. They were killing it against the spread and straight up. They had a nice 5-week run before losing to Arkansas State. Both teams coming off a bye here, Phil. Do you have a play in this one?
Yeah, I'm going to give a slight lean to ODU in this one for a couple of reasons. First of all, a little uncertainty at quarterback for Troy. There is a possibility Goose Crowder could return. That would be big if he came back, because I think he's the better quarterback. You go back to the Memphis game. He got lost in the first quarter of that one, and then the game went south on him. But Tucker Kilcrease has been playing okay. But if you look at the two teams, and you talked about, and first of all, Tripp, thank you for subscribing to Pressbox. I appreciate that. And I hope you're taking advantage, full use. All Pressbox subscribers get Phil Steele Plus for free. And when you look at Phil Steele Plus, the defenses are actually pretty close. They're both holding their opponents slightly below average. But offensively, it's a big mismatch. ODU is averaging 95 yards per game above what their opponents come in allowing. Meanwhile, Troy is gaining 76 yards below what their opponents allow. So a big edge on offense for ODU. They're at home for this one. I'm going to go with ODU minus the points at home.
All right, let's jump to Friday night. We've got a good one to start here. ACC action. Clemson on the road at Louisville. Not sure how much I can take away from the Tigers beating my Noles last week. They're going to be facing an angry Louisville team. That's for sure. You would have to think after losing as an 18.5-point favorite at home to Cal. Phil, I took your advice and played Cal. I wasn't expecting an outright win at Louisville, but they just can't seem to cover at home. The Cards are 0-6 against the spread at home this year. Wasn't really sure which way you'd lean on this one. I know you like the talent down there at Clemson. It might be a decent spot here for Louisville. Brom's been pretty good in the big games, it seems, but who do you trust more in this one?
Yeah, in this one, I'm actually going to go with Clemson plus the points for the couple of reasons. As I mentioned last week, I haven't been blown away with Louisville pretty much in any game. Their best game of the season was Miami of Florida, where they went on the road and got that win. But other than that, I mean, they lost to Virginia at home, trailed Pitt by double digits. James Madison outplayed them. Even the Virginia Tech game, they trailed that one 16-7 at the half, had a rally, got a late score for the cover, and then losing to Cal last week. So the run game took a little bit of a hit when Isaac Brown went out 2 weeks ago. Miller Moss has been okay at quarterback, not your typical Louisville quarterback. You know, last year, Tyler Shuck had 23 touchdowns, just 6 interceptions. This year, Miller Moss, 11 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. So not that great. Clemson has the talent to play, and you wondered if they would. I think the Florida State win may allow them to finish off the season strong. I could see them coming down the stretch, winning their final 4 games and building some momentum for next year. They have the talent. There's no doubt about it. That's why they were the preseason pick to be in the top 5 at the start of the year. So I like Clemson plus the points in this one. I think they can pull the outright upset.
Yeah, I've had a hard time trusting Clemson this year for obvious reasons, but after last week, who knows? Maybe they found a little something. It might be time to turn the light back on to green for the Tigers. We got another Friday night matchup. This one in the Big Ten. Oregon off that hard-fought win in Iowa City. They're back at home with Minnesota in town. It's a big spread here, Phil. 25.5 is what I'm seeing. I'd probably be looking at the first half here, maybe for Oregon. They're first in half-point margin in the first half margin this year. They like to start fast. I think they'll want to start fast here and try to put this one away early. I don't have a whole lot of interest outside of that in this one. Does this game have anything for you here, Phil?
Yeah, I like the Ducks in this one for a couple of reasons. First of all, go back and look at their last 2 games. They played Wisconsin at home. And while the first quarter was good weather, the final 3 quarters were played in rain and wind.
Monsoon.
And the Iowa game last week played in rain and wind. And so their offense, with just 21 and 18 points against 2 really, really good defenses. I mean, Wisconsin has got a really good D, and Iowa has a really good defenses in bad weather. Now, the weather's supposed to be good for this one. I checked the weather forecast, and it should be okay without the inclement weather that they've had the last couple of games. I think this offense wants to get back on track. And meanwhile, Minnesota has been pretty much disappointing. You go back and take a look at the Iowa game. They lost by 38 on the road. They lost Ohio State by 39 on the road. And even the game they beat Purdue, they were outgained by 194 yards in that game. The key difference with Minnesota this year, as opposed to past years, is P.J. Fleck is always great running the football. His teams, doesn't matter if it's a second string, third string, fourth string, fifth string running back, they're always dominant on the ground. Well, this year, in Big Ten play, they're only averaging 75 yards per game on the ground, 3.1. That puts a lot of pressure on the new quarterback, Drake Lindsey. Lindsey's been okay. And P.J. Fleck does like Lindsey, but if he had the run game, I think you'd see Drake Lindsey have much better stats than 10 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. So I think this is a Minnesota team that in the last 2 tests against strong teams on the road, got a field goal in each game and had 162 yards against Ohio State, had 133 yards against Iowa. Now they're catching an Oregon team that's, I think, going to be enthused. I think Oregon can finish off the season strong. So I'm going to lay the points in this one and take the Ducks at home.
All right. Corey in the chat, he agrees with you, Phil. He likes Oregon to roll. I'm very interested on the other side of that Oregon-Iowa game. I'm interested to see how Iowa is going to respond. And we're going to talk about that game here in just a little bit. it's a little bit later on Saturday, 3:30 game. So we're going to get to the Hawkeyes too and discuss that one. Moving to Saturday, the noon slate starts. We've got Wisconsin at number 2, Indiana. Phil, we don't have to spend a lot of time on this one. It's a big spread for Indiana at home against Wisconsin, 29.5. Are we going to get a ticked off Indiana team who needed a late drive to escape last week at Penn State? They're certainly capable of covering a big spread, but Wisconsin, the last couple of times out, in astonishing fashion, they beat Washington last week, like a 10.5 point dog at home. I did not see that one coming personally. I like the Huskies last week. And then a couple weeks before that, you mentioned the Oregon game. It was a monsoon, but they covered pretty easily, 21-7. Any interest in either one of these sides here, Phil?
Yeah, normally I'm all over Indiana, but let me tell you why I'm shifting in this particular game. First of all, the Wisconsin against Oregon two games ago, the first quarter was actually clear weather. And in the first quarter, Oregon had 19 yards offense against them. So Wisconsin's defense, they've got a couple of freshman linebackers that are outstanding. Both had big games last week. They're just shutting teams down. They're holding opponents 65 yards per game below their average. And hats off to the Wisconsin AD for keeping Luke Fickell. I think Luke Fickell will get this team turned around. When Wisconsin's schedule lightens next year, I'll give you a little precursor for the magazine. I'm going to have Wisconsin on my most improved list next year because they've got some good freshmen playing. For the third straight year, Luke Fickell has lost his starting quarterback in week 1 or week 2 of the season. This year, last week, they were down to their 4th string quarterback, a true freshman, Carter Smith, who basically ran the option against Washington in the second half. But I like the way their defense is playing. Now, with Indiana, here's the thing. Before, they were just laying it on teams. But now you have to start thinking, hey, we're going to be in the Big Ten title game. We're going to make the playoffs. I don't know if you play a full 60 minutes. You know, Ryan Day's philosophy has been run less plays, snap the ball late. Maybe we can run 60 plays a game and keep our team fresher for the playoffs. And I think when you're looking at Indiana, they don't need style points. It doesn't matter where they're ranked. What's going to matter is if they beat Ohio State in the Big Ten title game. So I think the style points go out the window this week against Wisconsin. I like the Badgers to keep this one closer than the line. What'd you say the line on this one was?
Seeing 29.5.
Yeah, 29.5. So I'll say under 4 touchdowns. And I really like the way Wisconsin is playing for Luke Fickell. So I'll take the Badgers plus the points here.
All right, we'll see if the Badgers can keep playing a little better there. They've got a little momentum on their side now after the win over Washington. Let's jump to the SEC. We've got Texas A&M back at home finally. They've been on the road for a while. 3 straight games. They won them all. Phil, it looks like they started this back on October 18th at Arkansas, at LSU, at Missouri. Back in College Station, and they're still chasing an undefeated season. The Gamecocks on the other side, they've struggled on offense all season. They fired their offensive coordinator, Mike Shula, a couple weeks back. South Carolina's defense, though, still pretty good, I think. I just wonder if they can score enough to hang around with the Aggies. I don't know. And this line's kind of been ballooning, too. I'm seeing 19.5 right now. I mean, if this thing messes around and gets over 21, I might have to play the Gamecocks again. It's not been something I've wanted to do all year, but this thing just keeps on going up. What do you like here?
Well, you gave a lot of analysis there. I'm going to let you pick this game, but I'll say what I think of the game. First of all, Texas A&M is a complete team. They've got one of the best offensive lines in the country. They're up for by the way, the Joe Moore Award. We have announced our semifinalists. We announced them last night, and Texas A&M is one of those. So congratulations to the Aggies. They've got the quarterback in Marcel Reed. They've got the VHT running backs, including Ruben Owens. They've got the receivers in Craver and Concepcion. And they've got an outstanding defense, holding opponents to 98 yards per game below their average, number 13 in the country. So a really good A&M team. Once again, they don't need style points. They need to just win. If you just win, even get past that Texas game, go 12-0, you're in the SEC title game, everything is on the table. South Carolina, I think when you look at them, as you mentioned, Tripp, they have a good defense. Offense has been struggling, so it could turn dangerous. I remember the last time South Carolina came here, I think it was a total blowout. But I think that they've been scrappy at times. They went into Ole Miss and only
Yeah.
lost by 16. Alabama, they were leading late. So I don't know. I'm going to let you pick this one, though, Trip, because I'm sort of, I can make a case for both teams. Who you picking?
Well, I could do the same. I think I would lean South Carolina, and I would probably wait because I don't think the line's going to move back towards them.
Right.
I would be patient, see if you get a couple more points here. But South Carolina, what I'm seeing right now, 19 and a half, I would lean South Carolina. I would also take a look at the under just because they've struggled so badly on offense this year. Texas A&M, we know, has an excellent defense under Mike Elko. So I would not expect to see a lot of points from the Gamecocks, and it's a 47 and a half total. So I could see this game going under. The one thing that would scare me there is we have seen when when a coach leaves. Now this isn't a head coach getting fired, but their offensive coach gets fired. They have somebody new running the offense. I don't know if they I don't know if you get a first game bump when it's just an offensive coordinator that goes, but I would look at the under there too.
Okay, that makes sense. Good call. Good analysis, Trip. I like that.
All right, we'll see if that hits. We're still in the noon slate here. Another really good game. Notre Dame at Pitt. Maybe the last real hurdle for Notre Dame this week on the road at Pitt. After this, the Irish finish up with Syracuse and Stanford, and I'm just going to go ahead and give those two. Count those as wins for Notre Dame there. They're 10 and a half point. Well, let me check that. That was earlier in the week. I think this line has actually moved a little bit here. Notre Dame, 12 and a half point. So maybe a little Notre Dame money coming in this week here, but it's 12 and a half that they're favored by now at Pitt. And the defense for Notre Dame, I know earlier in the season, we were really concerned about it. They look rough in those first few games, but they've been much better here of late. Pitt on the other side, 5-0 straight up and against the spread. We've talked about Pitt. They could be undefeated because they led both their losses, Louisville and West Virginia. I look back at their schedule, though, and I do think you would have to consider it to be on the soft side. This game's not going to affect their ACC standing, and even their head coach has come out and made that a point this week. So I don't know. It would be hard for me to not just lay the points here with Notre Dame in this one.
Yeah, and I'm going to agree with you, Trip. I like Notre Dame here. And you mentioned Narduzzi, and I think Narduzzi what he was trying to do is game days on hand, and he was trying to calm his team down a little bit, got to get them so hyped up, knowing they've got two crucial ACC games on deck. And Narduzzi's probably still there because they've got an ACC title under his belt, and I think he feels they've got a shot at doing it once again this year. They play Georgia Tech on the road, Miami at home. Neither game is easy, but both games, if they win them, they'll knock Georgia Tech out. They'll knock Miami of Florida out, and all of a sudden Pitt's in the ACC title game, one game away from being in the playoff. What does Notre Dame mean to their playoff chances? Absolutely nothing. They're not going to make the playoff if they don't win the ACC. The only way they make the playoff, win the ACC, and then it doesn't even matter if you have 3 wins. ACC champ is in. So keep that in mind with Pitt. And so when he came out and said, I wouldn't mind if our defense gave up 100 points, I think he just misspoke. He was just trying to calm them down a little bit. However, I always play Notre Dame against the ACC. They're 18-5 against the spread. They've got an outstanding offensive line. Love and Price are a dynamic combo. And nobody's talking about C.J. Carr, but C.J. Carr has 19 touchdowns, just 4 interceptions. As you mentioned, the defense got knocked early, but they are holding foes to 113 yards per game below their average, number 6 in the country. They have an excellent defense and crowd. I always love it when you have a team that's at home, but maybe the crowd's close to split. I think the crowd's going to be close to split here. Look for a lot of Notre Dame fans to be at this game at Pitt. So it'll almost feel like a home game at times for the Irish. I like Notre Dame minus the points here.
Yeah, I don't think Heichel's looked awesome too, but I don't think he's seen anything quite like what he'll be facing on Saturday. Appreciate all the comments in the chat. We've got Will. He chimed in with an Indiana first half play is what he likes this week. And our guy Daryl, he joins us every week. We appreciate you, Daryl, jumping back in the chat here. We're still in the noon window. A lot of good games early on Saturday. And we'll jump to the Big Ten. We've got a Big Ten battle in Wrigley Field, Northwestern and Michigan. And right off the bat, I see this as a Michigan team that's going to want to run the ball, 7th in yards per rush. Northwestern has struggled to stop that this season. I think Justice Haynes is still injured, but I'm sure they've got some guys where they can have some success there. However, Michigan away from home, only 1-3 against the spread this year. This technically, I guess, it's a neutral site, even though it's in Chicago where Northwestern's at. Low total here, 41.5. Both these teams really low snap per game teams. I could make a case for Northwestern here pretty easily. They've covered in 4 of their last 5, but I just think they're really going to struggle to stop Michigan on the ground.
Northwestern hasn't been bad on the ground, really. They're only allowing 143 yards per game on the ground, which isn't too bad. They play good defense, and defense has been their calling card. They're holding teams at 36 yards per game below their average. Now, offensively, what surprised me this year at Northwestern, you don't really expect them to be a strong running team, but they have been. Komalafe and Hyman running the football. They're averaging 181 yards per game. In fact, at home, 227 yards per game on the ground. So you got to like that. Now, Preston Stone has been prone to some interceptions. You go back a few weeks ago against Purdue, I think he threw three passes that should have been picked, but that were dropped. Yeah. And he's got 11 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Bryce Underwood's done a better job protecting that football, only 3 interceptions this year. And I think he's more of a threat with his legs as well. Having Haynes back along with Marshall gives him a dynamic combo. I think you have 2 teams that want to run the ball. So as you point, under could be a play here, even though the total's really low. I'm going to say, last year when these 2 met, Michigan won the game 50-6. So I'm going to say Michigan will have a lot of fans on hand. I mean, if you're a Michigan fan, go see a game at Wrigley Field. Why not? I think they'll have a decent amount of crowd there as well. I'm going to lean with Michigan, but it wouldn't be one of my top plays of the week. And I do think Northwestern gives them a game.
All right, let's jump to the Big 12. Arizona at Cincinnati. Looks like Bearcats laying 6.5. Cincy 4-2 against the spread at home, but they need to get right after a couple weeks back. They got blown out at Utah, which, I mean, at Utah, that happens to a lot of teams up there. The Bearcats, they do have BYU on deck if that's still a potential little bit of a look ahead. I know BYU caught a loss last week, but Arizona 1-2, only 1-2 ATS on the road. They've lost a couple of coin flip games to BYU in Houston, but they bounced back here with wins at Colorado, and then they came back and won against Kansas last week. Do you have a side you like in this one, Phil?
Yeah, I do. I think the situation really favors Cincinnati. And let's go back to Cincinnati's situation 2 weeks ago when they played Utah. Cincinnati was playing their 6th consecutive week. They were on the road, playing in altitude at 10:15 at night. And in that game, you look at the final score, and it was 45-14. But the yards, they actually had 427 yards. They only got outgained by 53 yards in that one. They struggled in the red zone in it. Now they're off a bye, off a loss, back at home. And the game's at 12 o'clock noon, as you mentioned, which is 9 o'clock in the morning Arizona time. So Arizona's off a come-from-behind win where they needed a late touchdown to beat Kansas. Frankly, I had Arizona minus the points in that game. I was hoping they'd settle for a field goal, take it to overtime, and then do what Vandy did, which is win by more than the spread in overtime. But nope, he goes and runs it in for a touchdown. So they won by 4. I think they were laying 4.5 or 5 in that game. But they're off a come-from-behind game, playing at 9 o'clock in the morning on the road. Now, the weather's not going to be bad. I live in Ohio. The temperature in Ohio is going to be in the 50s, I would say, for this game. It'll still be chilly for the Arizona guys, but not like 30 degrees or anything like that. But still, the situation much more in favor. I like teams that are off a loss, off a bye. And I think, frankly, Cincinnati's the better football team. So I like Cincy minus the points at home.
Chat agrees with you, Phil. They like Cincinnati, too. Let's jump over to the American and Navy back at home, kind of where they belong, back in the American Conference. Last week's road trip to South Bend, it just got out of hand early on there against Notre Dame.
Horvath.
What's that?
They didn't have Horvath.
Yeah, no Horvath, and it was just a rough road trip. for the Middies, who were 7-0, but they've dropped the last two and only managed to cover twice during that stretch. Meanwhile, USF 7-2 against the spread and straight up losses at Memphis in a really tough game there, and then at Miami way back in September. But when they take care of the ball, the Bulls tend to win and they tend to cover, and you could see some points here too. They've got another really high total, 65.5. What do you like in this one, Phil?
Did you watch the USF UTSA game last week? Even Coach Golish after the first quarter's like, I have never seen a quarter like that, because USF didn't have their first offensive snap until there were a few seconds left in the first quarter, yet they led 14-3. They got a fumble return for a touchdown, an interception return for a touchdown, and when they were about to get the ball went off the up man and was recovered by UTSA. So UTSA basically ran every single play in the first quarter, but trailed 14-3. After that, USF completely dominated. And then you look at the talent, and I think USF is probably the most talented team in the American. They've got talent on the defensive side of the ball. They're holding opponents below their average, and they can get pressure on the quarterback. Offensively, Byron Brown is just a tremendous athlete and a solid passer, solid runner, tough to contain. And I don't think Navy's defense has the talent to really contain it, and USF just has more of a talent edge. They're playing with legitimate revenge. And you mentioned Navy's record. That 7-0 start was pretty much against some pretty weak teams. Now that the competition has stepped up, the record has come to the forefront. I like USF to go on the road and get this one by more than the 10.5.
All right, we like the Bulls to cover. Going back to the SEC, 12:45 kick for Arkansas and LSU. I don't know what to do with this game. The Hogs going down to Baton Rouge. LSU's favored by 5.5. Arkansas still hasn't won a conference game. LSU benched Nussmeier, and they gave it a good run at Alabama. It was a competitive game. I'm sure Nussmeier probably wishes they would have just waited one more week to bench him, though, because I think they could have me at quarterback and still score on the Arkansas defense, because the Razorbacks have just been really bad on that side of the ball. But I think Van Buren's going to start again, unless you have different info there, Phil. And this will be the first game for Frank Harris taking over for Brian Kelly. And we know the head coaching interims thing, there has been a bounce if you buy into that sort of thing. I just don't know which one of these teams is going to have anything left in the tank here, Phil. What do you like here?
Yeah, second game for Coach. His first one was Alabama.
Last week. Sorry.
Yeah. And they played well. They played well against Alabama. Normally when you have a game that's offense versus defense, I'd say 90% of the time I side with the defensive side of the ball. But a couple of factors have me siding with the offensive side of the ball. First of all, when I say offense, I mean, a couple of weeks back, Arkansas put up 527 yards and 42 points on an excellent Texas A&M defense.
Yep.
This is an offense that on the season – putting up big numbers. Doesn't matter who they play. They are explosive. Bobby Petrino's offense, Talon Green at quarterback. As you mentioned, their defense, extremely poor. But believe it or not, when you look at the defense this year, they are, they're bad on both sides are on the defensive side. But LSU is opposite. LSU is a defensive team that has been poor on the offensive side of the ball. And the big factor, the big number that really swayed me in this game to liking Arkansas plus the points. And it's a stat that if you go to Phil Steele Plus, we give you the conference stats, just in conference play. LSU in conference play is minus 85 yards per game. Now, Arkansas is winless in conference play, right? So you'd expect, give me an estimate of what you think their yards would be since they're winless.
Well, even winless, they're still getting yards. Talon Green, I don't know.
They're actually plus 18 yards per game in SEC play.
Yeah.
And you look at their losses. They lost to Tennessee by 3. They lost to A&M by 3. The Auburn game, they did lose by more than this spread. They lost it by 11, but remember, they were winning in the fourth quarter. They gave up the interception return for a touchdown. Another interception set up a field goal, and all of a sudden they lost by 11. The Mississippi State game, they led by 14 in the fourth quarter, lost by 3. So a lot of their losses are by 3. And if you look at the last 5 matchups, This is a series that Arkansas takes more seriously than LSU. They're 12-5-1 against the spread versus LSU, and you can look that up in Phil Steele Plus. But also in the last 5 meetings, 4 of them have been decided by a field goal. So I think the fact that you're getting 6 points here with Arkansas, I'll take the Hogs plus the points over LSU.
Phil, I like to joke around and say Florida State's the best 15th place team of any team in the country, like conference wise. Arkansas's got to be the best 2-17 in college football history. The way they move up and down the field.
And remember the Memphis game. They're in position for the game-winning field goal, and they fumble. In the Ole Miss game, they're down by 5 or 6 in the fourth quarter and driving, and they're about to get the touchdown to go ahead, and they fumble. So twice they fumbled, or this team could have opened up 4-0, and had they not fumbled and opened up 4-0, Sam Pittman would probably still be the coach.
Probably still have a job. You're right. And I heard someone else talking about LSU. They were on LSU this week and talking about bowl eligibility. I'm like, what difference does it make? None of those guys are going to play in a bowl. They're all going to be in the portal depending on whoever they get for a head coach, you would think there's probably going to be some turnover down there this year. Let's keep it in the SEC. Do we have a little revenge play here with Bama and Oklahoma? Alabama, I'm seeing 5.5 right now for the line. Last year, this was the game that eliminated Alabama from the playoff. It was easily their worst game of the season. This line opened up over a touchdown, but as I just mentioned, it's down a couple of points now. Oklahoma really surprised me winning at Tennessee. I like the balls in that game, but their defense, they did give up a little more yards over the last couple of games when they stepped up in competition. 430 to Ole Miss, 450 to the Vols. Will Bama be able to take advantage of that? I know their offense, I don't know how they stack up. They haven't ran the ball all that great, but one stat here, Phil, 27-9-1 against the spread at home for Bama since 2020. They've been, as you would expect, very good at home. Is there a side you like here?
Yeah, I'm going to lean with the underdog, believe it or not.
Okay.
When I'm a line of scrimmage guy. I'm on the Joe Moore Awards, so I'm a line of scrimmage guy. And you've got Oklahoma with an excellent defensive front. Their defensive front seven, one of the best in the country. And you've got an Alabama offensive line that's been struggling. I mean, they've got more talent than their numbers. They should be able to establish a run. They just haven't been able to. And they're giving up some sacks as well. So I think that is sort of the advantage Oklahoma. I also think with John Mateer, I think the John Mateer we saw against Michigan earlier, you're going to start seeing him again now that he's another week removed from that injury he had. They're off a bye, so I think we're going to see the best John Mateer. Now, I love Ty Simpson. Right now, he's one of the top guys for the Heisman. He's having a fantastic year, especially with no run game. When you have a run game, it's you get better stats. He doesn't have a run game. He's got a 21-1 ratio. Defensively, I'm going to give the edge an edge to Oklahoma. They're still holding opponents to 117 yards per game below their average. Alabama is at home playing with revenge, and they are one of the best teams in the country. But I think Oklahoma makes a game of this. So I'll take Oklahoma plus the point. Should be a really good game.
Yeah, Mateer, they need the Mateer from Michigan and Tennessee too. Really, I think he played better against Tennessee. Their offense had been a little bit, sloppy throughout the season, but if they get that version, I think they're definitely a live dog this week. Here we'll jump to the ACC. This is one of my favorite games on the board. I've got my eyes on Duke this weekend. They're taking on Virginia. I love Duke here, coming off that loss at UConn. I just think this lines up well for them. They can move the ball on anybody. They just have to take care of it. That's been the story all season for the Blue Devils. Turnovers have kind of, bit them all year. Virginia, I don't know. They're hopeful that Chandler Morris is going to play. That was the last I saw. Chandler Morris is as tough as they come. I'm expecting him to play. And both these teams only one ACC loss. There's a million different scenarios for Charlotte looking ahead to the ACC championship. But I think we'll probably see some points here. And I just like Duke's offense a little bit better. I would lean with the Blue Devils here, Phil. What do you like?
Yeah, I think I've been more impressed with Duke at the line of scrimmage. At the start of the year, I really liked Virginia's offensive line. They're putting up amazing stats. I think in the first 5 games, they were averaging close to 6 yards per carry and had given up just 3 sacks all year. But that's changed. They've given up 12 sacks in the last 5 games. The offensive game, they're struggling to run the ball. So I think Duke's defensive front, we've seen them be dominant at times. And you talk about turnovers. What big turnover was that against Georgia Tech in the first quarter when they're threatening to score a touchdown and it's a fumble return for a touchdown? I think they really changed the game and allowed Georgia Tech to even win that game. Now they're at home. I like the way that Mentz is throwing the football. And I feel that Duke's a better team. And last week's game, one of the reasons I like Connecticut, it meant nothing to Duke. What happened in the Connecticut game didn't reflect their season. They've got 4 losses. Only one is in conference play. This team could very well be playing in the ACC title game. So I think Duke is the better team at home and just haven't been impressed with Virginia, especially offensively the last 5 weeks. And now with quarterback questions, I think you got to go with Duke. Good call there, Trip.
I really hope so. That's one of my favorite plays this weekend. If Duke takes care of the ball, they'll take care of us. That's what we need to happen there. Let's jump back. Here's another great game. Phil, I can't really wait to hear you break down this one because you talk about opposing styles. USC and Iowa, it doesn't get much better than that. The Hawkeyes played the game they loved last week. Slow, in the rain. I mean, you couldn't make a better environment for Iowa football. They nearly pulled the upset on Oregon. My only question for Iowa moving forward into this week, are they going to be a little bit deflated or are they going to be motivated from that win? USC has been good at home, 4-1 against the spread at home this year. Iowa's been good on the road, though. The only loss was at Iowa State. That was way back in week 2. I will be really nervous if USC scores early and grabs a lead. They're also, I think over the last 2 years, they're 8-1 against the spread as a home favorite over the last 2 seasons. I actually like Iowa a little bit. I don't think Ferentz is going to let these guys quit. I don't think they want to quit. And I think the spread is just a little bit too high for me. Maybe we see a deflated Iowa team, but I don't think so. I would ride with Iowa in 6.5 here, Phil.
Excellent, because I wasn't going to pick this game. I was going to let you pick it, so you've picked it, which is good. Sirp likes Iowa, and that's what pick we're going with here. I absolutely agree with you 100%. Coach Ferentz will never have a deflated team. They will be ready to go all the time. I probably the most disappointing I've been with them was last year's loss to UCLA, where UCLA ran the football on them, but that was a different situation. That was Iowa, off big win and had, looking past UCLA. That's not going to be the case here. I love the way they play defense. Phil Parker is one of the best defense coordinators in the game. They're holding opponents to 119 yards per game below their average, number 5 in the country. And last year, they had a good defense, but it wasn't a Phil Parker great defense. Now they've got that great defense. They also have a special teams edge here. And I like the way that Mark Gronowski is really, watch Gronowski at the start of the year, the first couple of weeks, he wasn't 100%. He's rounding into form. They're using him more on the ground. He also is an effective passer. And, of course, he led South Dakota State to a couple of national titles. And you look at USC, this is a talented team. And if USC wins out, they're in the playoff. No ifs, no ands, no buts. They would be 10-2. They'd have wins over Iowa and Oregon down the stretch. You look at them offensively, they can be explosive. They've got Lemon and Lane at receiver. King Miller's been doing a great job running the football. Defensively, this is one of Lincoln Riley's best defenses that he's put on the field. They're just allowing 347 yards per game. So I think you mentioned it. If USC gets ahead by a couple scores early, then I was in trouble. But I don't anticipate that happening. So we're going to lean with what Tripp said and go with Iowa plus the points.
Yeah, styles make fights. That should be a pretty interesting fight to watch there at 3:30 in the Coliseum. All right, where are we heading next here? Back to the ACC. NC State at Miami. Hurricanes laying 14.5. I've seen 15.5 out there too. Another kind of interesting game here. Miami very good against the pass. They have a pass rush. So CJ Bailey for NC State, he's definitely going to have his hands full, but he is also the kind of guy who could make some plays when things break down. But I mean, they were able to do that even very short-handed against Georgia Tech without Smothers, without their tight end. But NC State defense, not very good, and they haven't been very good on the road either. Our friend Stephen Hartzell told me yesterday he thinks there's going to be a lot of points scored down in South Florida this weekend with Miami and NC State. I just wonder if the Pack can score enough to keep up here. Again, the spread 14.5, 15.5. I'm seeing different numbers here. What do you like in this one, Phil?
Yeah, and I think the thing I like about Mario Cristobal is he's always good for a late score. Remember the late score that he had against Stanford, got him the cover in that one. Even last week against Syracuse, he got that late score for the cover, but then shockingly, Syracuse brings in their backup quarterback, their fourth string QB, who really had struggled the week before. And naturally, he leads them down the field. And on the schedule predictor they have on philsteele.com, I believe we had Miami up there as a play. And boom, Syracuse gets the backdoor cover on that one. And they only won by 28. I think this is a Miami team that right now, some teams that are playing for the playoff spot just need to win games. Miami's not in that book. Miami needs to win games and win games impressively because odds are they're not going to make the ACC title game. They've got 2 losses. And so if they don't make the ACC title game, then they're leaving it up to the committee. And the committee's going to say, do we think they're as good as this team from the SEC or this team from the Big Ten? So I think Miami needs to impress. And you spoke about NC State's defense. That is their weakness. They're giving up over 400 yards per game. The last 3 games, they've given up basically over 500 yards per game. I think Miami with Carson Beck should be able to put up some big numbers here at home. And I do think they're good for a late score for the cover as well, if needed. I think Miami's a better team, has the motivation. I like the Hurricanes to win this one by close to 3 touchdowns or more.
All right, let's keep it in the ACC. Phil, you've been riding the Tar Heels for a couple of weeks now, and it's been paying off.
It has been, but that doggone back door was left open last week. We were up 20-3 for God's sake. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
You're fine. That's totally fine. It's a conversation here. They're going to be getting around a touchdown when they face Wake Forest on Saturday in Winston-Salem. I'm seeing a 4:30 kick time there. And you talk about a team. I'm going to go for just a second on Jake Dickert. You talk about a team that's overperformed this year. It might be a letdown spot for the Deeks because they're off a big win at Virginia, but Jake Dickert has been an absolute home run hire for Wake Forest. And if I was Wake Forest, I would already be renegotiating with Jake Dickert to try to keep him in Winston-Salem because I guarantee you, with the amount of openings we have in college football right now, the head coaching spot, somebody's going to mention the job Jake Dickert's done for Wake Forest. So I would already get out in front of that if I was the Deeks and try to lock him up even longer. But back to this game, both two good defenses. They're expecting a very low scoring game. I've seen the total drop all the way down to 38.5. Are you going to be going back to the well with North Carolina here, Phil?
Yeah, I am. And I think you mentioned it. This should be a low-scoring game. So if you're getting 6.5 points like North Carolina is, that's a good thing. You figure if one team wins, they win by 3. Both have really good defenses this year. North Carolina's D is just shutting teams down. It's unfortunate that last week they had that 20-3 lead over Stanford. It looked easy. You can give up a score. Who cares? But no, we gave up 2 scores. And all of a sudden, the final's 20-15, and they don't get the cover in that game, which was very disappointing. But offensively, they've struggled. Same thing with Wake. They're not doing anything offensively. 247 yards against Florida, 208 yards last week. And sort of fortunate last week. They got the punt return touchdown before the half. Interception gave them a field goal. And Virginia's quarterback got knocked out of the game. And they ended up winning it by 7. A couple weeks back, they got the last-second field goal to get by SMU. They made the comeback. They had a really fortunate final 2 minutes against Virginia Tech in the first half as well. So they're actually minus 37 yards per game in ACC play, and North Carolina's plus 18. I think the buy side went on. This team's playing a lot better, and had they beaten Stanford by more than the spread last week, I think a lot more folks would be high on them. And they really should be on a 4-game win streak right now. The California game, they fumble in the end zone for a touchback. Virginia game, they fumble in the end zone for a touchback, miss a field goal. I'm not wild about either offense here. I am wild about both defenses. I like North Carolina plus the points.
All right, good deal. Let's we're into the ninth slate now. Florida at Ole Miss. A lot of people will throw in the quit word around the Florida Gators after what happened at Kentucky last week, 38-7, the final from Lexington. This line, I think, opened up around 13.5. It's up to 15.5 is what I'm seeing currently here, Phil. Add to that, Ole Miss basically eliminated from the playoff last season as a big favorite in the Swamp. So you have to think this is kind of a revenge game for Ole Miss. But I see you actually think the Gators could hang around here.
Yeah, I'm not going to overreact to one game. And yes, do you remember Alabama against Florida State, the second half? And Alabama
I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah, and then the next week, everybody was on Alabama. Oh, you did this, you did that, you quit. And there were some plays where that player that loafed on a couple of plays, he came back with a vengeance the next week. Florida's got way too much talent. Just 2 weeks ago, this Gator team was playing Georgia and led Georgia in the fourth quarter. When they played LSU, they lost by 10, but in that game, they were -5 in turnovers, and they had a 23-10 first down edge. This is the same Florida team that beat Texas. They gave A&M a really good game on the road. So I think they have the talent to play with Ole Miss. And going back to my thing, I said Ole Miss doesn't need style points. What they need to do is win their last 2 games. If Mississippi, remember last year, they were disappointed. They didn't make the playoff. They're not going to take a lot of chances here, especially if they're up late. They're not going to be throwing the football over the field trying to get more points and more yards. They want, if they get out of here with a win, get out of Mississippi State with a win. They're 11-1 at the end of the year. They are in the playoff, and then what happens? So I think we're going to see Florida play a much better game than last week. Lord knows they probably have heard it all week long. There's a Kentucky player after the game said, we knew if we would punch them in the mouth that they'd back down, and they did. I got to think that they've got some pride here. So I'm going to take Florida plus the big points here and not overreact to last week's loss. I think we'll see a much, much more competitive Gator team this week.
All right, Phil's back in the Gators. Still in the 7
I got
o'clock
Ole Miss
window.
winning the game, no doubt. But I got Florida plus the points.
Okay, I got you. Jumping to the Big 12, we've got Utah on the road at Baylor, another 7 p.m. kick in Waco. Utes are very good, 7-2 against the spread. Baylor 5-4 overall, but they're only 2-7 ATS. Utes have to win out to have any shot in that Big 12 race. I think they still need some help, but Utah's going to get up and down the field on the Bears. Most offenses are able to do that if they have a pulse. Sawyer Robertson, he's going to get his share too. I just think I like Utah. I think Utah's just a better team here, and I trust them to be able to get more stops than I do with Baylor. So I would lay it, and it was up to 8.5 yesterday. Now I'm seeing 7.5 that Utah's laying. So I like the Utes here.
Yeah, so do I. Baylor's been very disappointing this year. I'm surprised Dave Aranda's defense is allowing foes 22 yards per game above their average. Now, they are off a good game. They held UCF to 225 yards in their last outing. They won that game 30-3. They're playing better. Dave Aranda's a hell of a coach. Sawyer Robertson, as you said, is a quarterback that's going to put numbers on anybody. But Utah is really a complete team. Their offensive line is a Joe Moore Award semifinalist. I think they've got a shot at winning it all. I mean, they've got 2 first-round draft picks at tackle. They can run the football on anybody. They're averaging almost 6 yards a carry. They've got Dampier, a quarterback who's very efficient throwing the football. When you have a solid run game, makes it easier on the quarterback. Defensively, they've got one of the best defenses out there, holding opponents to 89 yards per game below their average. And I think they're going to be able to handle the road. And you look at their losses. That Texas Tech game, they were 10-10 in the fourth quarter. All of a sudden, Texas Tech brought in the mobile quarterback, and they got 24 points on them in the fourth quarter. The BYU game, they went for it on fourth down 3 times deep in BYU territory because they were so confident they would get it with that offensive line. They didn't. They got stopped, and that's why they lost that game. But I think Utah is clearly one of the top 10 teams in the country, a very complete team, and I see them going on the road and getting the win here.
I'm in agreement with you there, Phil. We're coming down the stretch here, 7:30. we've got a big game between the hedges Saturday night. Texas at Georgia. The Dogs are laying 5.5. Georgia's just not a defensive team this year. That's not what this team's identity is. And I think a lot of those NFL guys that used to be backups at Georgia, they're scattered around and they're making NIL money somewhere else. And they're just not as deep and they're not as good on defense this year. Gunnar Stockton, though, I think has been really good. He's been a surprise for me. I do think this might be the best defense he's seen all year. The Dogs won both meetings last season. That game in Austin, probably their best game of the season last year. Speaking of best game of the season, Texas probably just played that against Vanderbilt. The first 3 quarters, they were lights out. They did give up, I think, 3 scores in the fourth quarter. Vandy kind of made it interesting there at the end. It's going to be a crazy atmosphere in Sanford Stadium. What do you like here, Phil?
Yeah, that Texas Vanderbilt game. I'm sorry you brought that up because I had Texas. I basically counted as a win, wrote win on my sheet, and it was my fault because when you write win on your sheet, you do know it's going to come back and be a push or a loss at the end. So all you people wondering why Texas blew that massive lead, blame it on me. I wrote win on my sheet. But with Texas, they have questions on the offensive line. They have questions in the run game. Last 3 weeks, they've struggled to run the football. And defensively, you came into the year thinking they had one of the top defenses in the country, and they do have a really good defense. They're holding opposed to 76 yards below their average, but giving up over 300 yards per game, to about 340 yards per game the last 4 games. Meanwhile, Georgia, their defense is actually allowing less than 300 yards per game the last 5 games. They're allowing 290 yards per game. So the defense is playing better. They have a good offensive line. They're averaging 4.7 yards a carry. They've got the running back in Nate Frazier. And Gunnar Stockton, Arch Manning came into the year with hype. Gunnar Stockton just keeps flying under the radar. He's a legitimate Heisman contender. And he's got a 15-2 ratio this year, plus can hurt you with his legs. So I think Georgia's frankly the better team at home between the hedges. They proved last year. They were an underdog both times to Texas and won both. I like Georgia minus the points in this game. It's you wouldn't think that off the cuff. You're thinking Georgia, Texas, making a 3-point line and great games. I'm actually going to go with Georgia minus the points in this.
Okay. Georgia at home is going to get it done. Now we got to go to an even bigger game, probably the biggest game of the week. Virginia Tech at Florida State. Everybody's wanted to hear a breakdown of this one. I'll probably lose some money here again because there's no way I can trust Florida State to cover 2 touchdowns against anyone. But Phil, I think you want to back the Seminoles again this week. This happened back at the Wake Forest game too. I said there's just no way I can trust these guys to cover double digits, and they did against Wake Forest last week. I was just really disappointed in the offense because if you watched the game, Gus Malzahn had some plays dialed up for that Clemson defense, and every one of them, Florida State would drop the pass. It was just an incredible amount of drops in that game for the Noles, and it just went sideways early. What do you like here, Phil? You think Florida State can cover a big number at home?
Yeah, and my computer is always red hot. I mean, my computer has great picks on a weekly basis, and I always look at my numbers on there. And on the Phil Steele Plus tour, this is actually one of the plays, and it's my computer wanted to use, but I wouldn't let it. I wouldn't let the computer use this as a best bet in inside the press box, but it has Florida State win this game by 24. So, and I think what you just mentioned about the players being open and dropping passes, that's actually a positive because if they hold on to them here, I think they're in good shape. And with Virginia Tech, they've been scrappy since Philip Montgomery took over. I think he is doing a really good job. But I didn't like the fact that they gave up the points late to Louisville, ended up losing that one. Same thing with Georgia Tech. They could easily have covered that game had Philip Montgomery not gone for 2 after scoring a touchdown. They would have lost by 14 and covered the 14.5. But I digress. But once again, my computer says Florida State by 24. And I was like, well, I don't know. That seems like a lot. But it liked it also against Wake Forest trip. So I'm going to let the computer pick this one. My computer says take Florida State. They win by 24.
All right. I hope your computer's right, Phil. I'm pulling for that computer this week. Let's jump back to the SEC. We're coming down the stretch here, so we'll go quick. My call on Missouri, it did not go well last week. Zollers was probably a little bit in over his head, and I was concerned about that too. First start against A&M. You're probably going to struggle. Missouri gets to play another team that got blown out by A&M this week in Mississippi State. 7:45 kick in Como. Tigers favored by 6.5. It's a 2-game losing streak for Mizzou. Miss State got rolled last week by Georgia. A lot of points there. I did like the over in that game, so that hit, but they probably still got some guys getting medical attention after that Georgia game. But this is an interesting matchup here, Phil. Do you see any value on either side here?
Not a huge amount. Wouldn't be one of my top plays of the week because Missouri beats non-ranked teams at home. Hence their 5-0 start this year. They struggle when they play ranked teams. Shapen did get knocked out of the game last week for Mississippi State, but I like what I saw out of Taylor. Taylor guided a couple of touchdown drives late, or a couple of scoring drives late, I should say, against Georgia last week. So he looked pretty good running and throwing the football. With Missouri, they're just not quite the same without Pabula at QB. I would lean with Mississippi State plus the points, but as I said, a little on guard because of the fact Missouri does take care of business against non-ranked teams at home.
Phil, I've also seen a lot of people. We're getting into the late night slate here. 10:15 TCU at BYU. I've seen a lot of people on TCU this week. I'm really not sure why they haven't done a whole lot here recently to impress me. I mean, they really struggled at West Virginia. They lost at Iowa State last week. I mean, I'm sure they're going to be up for it for BYU in a big game, but I don't know if I can trust the Horned Frogs here. I'd probably still lean Cougars. What do you think here?
Yeah, I haven't been blown away by TCU this year. If you're looking for an impressive game, it's tough to come by. Even the SMU game, they trailed in the fourth quarter, got 2 late touchdowns. Colorado, it's a tie game, and they're punting with 5 minutes to go. The ball goes off the up man. They score 2 late scores and win by 14. The Baylor game was probably their most impressive game, but that was one that was stop, start due to rain delays. So I haven't been blown away with TCU. Meanwhile, BYU has impressed. Now, they did a little bit smoke and mirrors in a couple of games. They won games they probably didn't deserve to, like Arizona, but they're at home in the altitude. They've got a really good defense. They've got Bear Mockmeyer at quarterback. I like BYU to bounce back after that loss and come out with a solid win over TCU.
All right, last game on the slate here. It's a late start, 10:30 kick for Boise State, San Diego State.
But I am going to let you pick this one, so don't say a lot. I'm going to give you my analysis, then you're going to pick it.
Okay. Well, go ahead. Hit me with it. If you
want to make the case for San Diego State, they were a buzzsaw heading into last week. They were destroying everybody, a spread darling. But they had won 5 in a row against the spread, and then I was going to use them on the tour, and I looked at my spread logs, and Hawaii had won 4 in a row against the spread. So I'm like, I can't really use it as a streak on San Diego State because Hawaii's on a roll, and they got it handed to them. Maybe they were looking ahead to this game a little bit. Now, Denegal wasn't 100% a quarterback last week. He should be more healthy this week. They have a great defense. They're holding opponents well below their average, and they're very solid. But Boise is the defending champs. And, yes, they lost their quarterback and then struggled without Madsen last week during the last game when they played Fresno. But now their backup has had time to work in the offense, and they're a dangerous team. So I find it tough to go against either of these two teams. I want to play on them both. So I'm going to let you pick this one, Tripp.
I don't have a strong play here, but I would lean with San Diego State at home off a loss. I mean, they ran off the island last week, man. Hawaii they could not slow down that passing attack, but that's something I don't think they're going to have to worry about as much this week. With Boise, without their quarterback, we saw what happened, 30-7 against Fresno. That was a head scratcher for me. Phil, Boise, an 18-point favorite in that Fresno game, even when you lose your quarterback. I mean, that's a 3-score difference there from the spread compared to what actually happened in the game. I would lean San Diego State here to cover the spread at home.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say about that is it was much like the USF game, where once they lost their quarterback, they were struggling on offense. They had some key turnovers. They were -3 on turnovers, like the USF game. Remember, that game was close in the third quarter, and then USF got the fake punt for a touchdown, and then all of a sudden Boise turned it over, stopped on downs, turned it over, and all of a sudden USF won the game by 27 points. It was like that was a blowout. Same thing happened here. Turnover, stopped on downs, turnover. And Fresno only had 224 yards offense in the game. So it was basically Boise giving the ball in the short field because of the turnovers and the stop down downs that turned it into a blowout 30-7. Just thought I'd throw that in there.
We love all the info, Phil. We appreciate your time. That's it for the week 12 slate. But now it's time for the top 3 plays of the week. This is a part of the show where I hope people have been paying attention here, because the last 2 weeks, a perfect 6-0 over that stretch, and then a 7-week stretch going 17-3-1. That's pretty good, sir. We appreciate the picks. What do you like this week?
Well, let's hope it continues. That's always the big thing. And there are 3 games that we've talked about, so I don't need to go in depth about them. But I think if you listened, you could tell I really like these 3 games. I've got Clemson plus the 3 over Louisville in an upset. That's on the Friday night game. Then I've got Cincinnati -6 over Arizona, a good situational play. And then I got Arkansas +6 over LSU. They actually are positive yards in SEC play. LSU is -85 yards. So Clemson, Cincinnati, and Arkansas are the 3 plays this week for this show. What's your play, Strip?
All right, we love it. Well, I've got some plays too. I really like Utah this week. I think they'll take care of business on the road. We talked about Duke as well. That's one of my favorite plays of the week. I just think the Blue Devils are in a great spot to get a win over Virginia off that loss at UConn. I just think it's lining up right for Duke in this spot. The only game I would go against you here on the show this week, Phil, I kind of like Ole Miss. I think they're going to be out for revenge. And I hear what you're saying. Florida's definitely better than they showed last week. So maybe they make it interesting. But that's the only game I was really oppo on you on. I think I would go with the Rebels there. And hopefully they all hit. And hopefully that top 3 hits again. And we go 9-0 for a 3-week stretch. That would just be awesome. Phil, do you want to remind everybody listening, everybody watching, what's going on at philsteele.com right now one more time?
Yeah, I appreciate that. The Phil Steele Plus Tour with selections. You get 4 selections this week and 5 quick hitters. The selections went 4-1 last week, 18-8-1 over the last 5 weeks. And the quick hitters, which I throw in at the end, I usually just give a couple of thoughts on them. They went 3-2 last week, are 28-12 over the last 7 weeks. That's 28 wins, 12 losses. They're hot, just like this show is on the plays. Hopefully they continue to do so this week. But all you do is go to philsteele.com. Right on the front menu is the Phil Steele Plus Tour. Just click on it. It's on YouTube, and take the Phil Steele Plus Tour with selections.
That's good stuff. Also go to homefieldapparel.com. That's our sponsor on the show. We love Homefield. They've got their new Game Breaker jackets out right now, and they're awesome. I don't know, Phil, if you remember back in the 90s, I know Bobby Bowden would wear some of those like starter jackets. Jimmy Johnson would wear them on the sidelines for the Cowboys. They brought back the throwback edition of those. Go over to homefieldapparel.com, Phil15. That's the code. You'll get 15% off of your order there. So we really appreciate Homefield. We appreciate Will, Daryl, Corey, all the guys in the chat giving us picks, telling us what they like. We thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next week at 11 a.m. Eastern time with the Week 13 edition of the Phil Steele Show. We'll talk to you then.